Hare Krishna. Welcome back to Swadhyaya Reading Retreat Labs. So we are continuing with Srimad Bhagavatam, canto number 9. So today we are going to start a new chapter, that is the chapter number 4, right? So now without any delay, let's then get started with the chapter number 4. So before we start, I will just quickly show you the mind map. So what are the topics are there in the canto number 9, chapter number 4, and how we are going to read and what is our plan of covering the entire chapter. So now this is the overall mind map. So if you see, this is, I have taken it from Subodhini series. So this entire chapter number 4 can be divided into 5 parts. In the first part, it is all about the story of Nābhāga, which is the verse number 1 to 12. Part number 2 covers the verse from verse number 13 to verse number 28. It is all about the qualities and activities of Ambarīṣa Mahārāja. Part number 3 is from verse number 29 to verse number 41. It talks about Ambarīṣa Mahārāja's Ekadasi and Dwadasi Vrata. So the fourth part is from verse number 42 to 48. It talks about how Durvasa Muni creates a fiery demon to kill Ambarīṣa Mahārāja. The fifth part, the last part of this chapter, covers verse number 49 to verse number 62, where Durvasa Muni approaches Brahma, Shiva, and Narayana. So this is the overall mind map. So for each session, we will be covering one part only. So today we are going to start with the first part, that is verse number 1 to verse number 12. So now, without any delay, let's then move on to the our Veda-based series. And as usual, I always prefer to have reading from the hard copy. So I have the hard copy with me as well. So this is my hard copy of Srimad Bhagavatam, canto number 9. And if you do not have the hard copy, I always recommend to get it from the nearest ISKCON center in your city. Or let me know if you want to order the same. So now let's get started with the first part, that is the story of Nābhāga. So this is the Veda base as usual, and the canto number 9 is liberation. And as people who are already must be aware of how to navigate this, this is the homepage of Srimad Bhagavatam. So here there are 12 cantos. So now we are in the 9th canto, liberation. And in this canto, we have how many? 24 chapters. And we are now continuing the 4th chapter, Ambarīṣa Mahārāja, offended by Durvasa Muni. Right. So as usual, we will not be reading the sloka and the verse word by word meaning. So there is another lab, we call it sloka recitation lab, that will be focused on sloka recitation and understanding meaning word by word and the overalls. But here we'll be focusing more on the reading, understanding, the translation and purport, and then note making using either using the Notion app, or you are if you are comfortable, and otherwise we will be also making the mind maps. We already, the mind map is there, we will be extending or enhancing this existing mind maps as per our understanding and teachings from Srila Prabhupada's book. So let's get started. Chapter number 4, Ambarīṣa Mahārāja offended by Durvasa Muni. This chapter describes the history of Mahārāja Nabhaga, of his son Nābhāga, and Mahārāja Ambarīṣa. So there are two names you can see: Nabhaga of his son, story of history of Mahārāja Nabhaga, of his son Nābhāga, and of Mahārāja Ambarīṣa. The son of Manu was Nābhāga, and his son Nābhāga lived for many years in the gurukula. In Nābhāga's absence, his brothers didn't consider his share of the kingdom, but instead divided the property among themselves. When Nābhāga returned home, his brothers bestowed upon him their father said is there. But when Nābhāga went to his father and told him about the dealings of the brothers, his father informed him that this was cheating and advised him that for his livelihood he should go to the sacrificial arena and describe two mantras to be chanted there. Nābhāga executed the order of his father, and thus Aṅgirā and other great saintly persons gave him all the money collected in that sacrifice. To test Nābhāga, Lord Śiva challenged his claim to the wealth, but when Lord Śiva was satisfied by Nābhāga's behavior, Lord Śiva offered him all the riches. From Nābhāga was born Ambarīṣa, the most powerful and celebrated devotee. Mahārāja Ambarīṣa was the emperor of the entire world, but he considered his opulence temporary. Indeed, knowing that such material opulence is the cause of downfall into conditional life, he was unattached to his opulence. He engaged his senses and mind in the service of the Lord. This process is called Yukta Vairagya or feasible renunciation, which is quite suitable for worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because Mahārāja Ambarīṣa, as the emperor, was immensely opulent, he performed devotional service with great opulence, and therefore, despite his wealth, he had no attachment to his wife, children, or kingdom. He constantly engaged his senses and mind in the service of the Lord. Therefore, to say nothing of enjoying material opulence, he never desired even liberation. Once Mahārāja Ambarīṣa was worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead in Vrindavan, observing the vow on Dwadasi. On Dwadasi, the day after Ekadasi, when he was about to break his Ekadasi fast, the great mystic yogi Durvasa appeared in his house and became his guest. King Ambarish respectfully received Durvasa Muni, and Durvasa Muni, after accepting his invitation to eat there, went to bath in the Yamuna river at noontime. Because he was absorbed in samadhi, he didn't come back very soon. Maharaj Ambaris, however, upon seeing that the time to break the fast was passing, drank a little water. In accordance with the advice of learned Brahmanas, just to observe the formality of the breaking the fast. By mystic power, Durvasa Muni could understand that this had happened, and he was very angry. When he returned, he began to chastise Mahārāja Ambarīṣa, but he was not satisfied. And finally, he created from his hair a demon appearing like the fire of death. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, however, is always the protector of his devotee. And to protect Maharaj Ambarish, he sent his disc, the Sudarshana Chakra, which immediately vanquished the fiery demon and then pursued Durvasa, who was so envious of Maharaj Ambarish. Durvasa fled to Brahmaloka, Sivaloka, and all the other fire planets. But he could not protect himself from the wrath of the Sudarshana Chakra. Finally, he went to the spiritual world and surrendered to Lord Narayana. But Lord Narayana couldn't excuse a person who had offended a Vaishnava. To be excused from such an offense, one must submit to the Vaishnava whom he has offended. There's no other way to be excused. Thus, Lord Narayana advised Durvasa to return to Maharaj Ambarish and beg his pardon. So now let's move on to the verse number 1. Translation. Sukadeva Goswami said the son of Nabhaga named Nābhāga lived for a long time at the place of his spiritual master. Therefore, his brothers thought that he was not going to become a grihastha and would not return. Consequently, without providing a share for him, they divided the property of their father among themselves. When Nābhāga returned from the place of his spiritual master, they gave him their father as his share. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. There are two kinds of brahmacharis. One may return home, marry, and become a householder, whereas the other, known as Brihad Brata, takes a vow to remain a brahmachari perpetually. The Brihad Brata brahmachari doesn't return from the place of the spiritual master. He stays there and later he directly takes sannyas. Because Nābhāga didn't return from the place of his spiritual master, his brothers thought that he had taken Vrihadvrata Brahmacharya. Therefore, they didn't preserve his share, and when he returned, they gave him their father as his share. So, one of the things we can say, this is something very new for me, so I will just make a note of it. The discovery points which I discovered, I never read it from there. So let's put it here. Grihad Brahmacharya. This is the discovery point. Let's move on to the next verse. Verse number 2. Translation. Nābhāga inquired, my dear brothers, what have you given to me as my share of our father's property? His elder brothers answered, we have kept our father as your share. But when Nābhāga went to his father and said, my dear father, my elder brothers have given you as my share of property, the father replied, my dear son, don't reply upon their cheating words. I am not your property. Verse number 3. Translation. Nābhāga's father said, all the descendants of Aṅgirā are now going to perform a great sacrifice. But although they are very intelligent, on every sixth day they will be bewildered in performing sacrifice and will make mistakes in their daily duties. Purport. Nābhāga was very simple-hearted. Therefore, when he went to his father, the father, out of compassion for his son, suggested that as a means of livelihood, Nābhāga could go to the descendants of Aṅgirā and take advantage of their misgivings in performing yajna. Verse number 4 and 5 combined. Translation. Nābhāga's father continued, go to those great souls and describe two Vedic hymns pertaining to Vaishadeva. When the great sages have completed the sacrifice and are going to the heavenly planets, they will give you the remnants of the money and they have received from the sacrifice. Therefore, go there immediately. Thus, Nābhāga acted exactly according to the advice of his father, and the great sages of the Aṅgirā dynasty gave him all their wealth, and then they went to the heavenly planets. Verse number 6. Translation. Therefore, while Nābhāga was accepting the riches, a black-looking person from the north came to him and said, all the wealth from this sacrificial arena belongs to me. Verse number 7, translation. Nābhāga then said, then these riches belong to me. The great saintly persons have delivered them to me. When Nābhāga said this, the black-looking person replied, let us go to your father and ask him to settle our disagreement. In accordance with this, Nābhāga inquired from his father. Verse number 8, translation. The father of Nābhāga said, whatever the great sages sacrificed in the arena of the Daksha Yajna, they offered to Lord Śiva as his share. Therefore, everything in the sacrificial arena certainly belongs to Lord Śiva. Verse number 9. Translation. Therefore, after offering obeisances to Lord Śiva, Nābhāga said, O worshipable Lord, everything in this arena of sacrifice is yours. This is the assertion of my father. Now, with great respect, I bow my head before you, begging your mercy. Verse number 10. Translation. Lord Śiva said, whatever your father has said is the truth, and you also are speaking the same truth. Therefore, I who know the Vedic mantras shall explain transcendental knowledge to you. Verse number 11, translation. Lord Śiva said, now you may take all the wealth remaining from the sacrifice, for I give it to you. After saying this, Lord Śiva, who is most adherent to the religious principles, disappeared from that place. Verse number 12, translation. If one hears and chants or remembers this narration in the morning and evening with great attention, he certainly becomes learned, experienced in understanding the Vedic hymns, and expert in self realization. So this was all about the first segment, the story of a Nābhāga. In the next session, we will be continuing with the part two of the chapter number 4 of ninth canto. So where we'll be covering the verse from 13 to 28 is all about the qualities and activities of Ambarish Maharaj. So before we close, we will be doing some mind map exercise once again. So in the story of Nābhāga, we came across one short family tree again. So let's draw that. So starting from, we have seen the son of Manu was Nābhāga. So we will just put it here like this. So you'll be using this symbol. Manu is Nābhāga, then his son Nābhāga. So this is the again the tree, and we have what we have seen here. Then Nābhāgas, and this is already we're planning to cover in the upcoming sessions. Okay, so Nābhāga was born Ambarish. So Ambarish Maharaj was son of Nābhāga. Nābhāga. This is a family tree. So basically, we will copy this. So here we will be just mentioning it so that we will be understanding and easy to remember. Refer also. So this is a tree. Manu, Nābhāga, then Ambarish Maharaj. Right? Then any other points, let's see in this. So the personas we have seen, Lord Śiva is in the picture, Nābhāga is coming. So all the things we have covered. Okay. I don't think anything else is there. We will be check it out. Hmm. So there are three segments to summarize here. So verse number 1 to 12. So if you summary, so we have seen the verse number 1 and 2 is all about we have seen Nābhāga's brothers give their father as a share of the property. So those his brothers, right? Nābhāga's brother. How do you write? So here we'll be using this again. Nābhāga, Nābhāga's brothers give their, instead we'll be writing here like this, give their father as his property of share, property share, right? So this is the first line, first segment. Now coming to this second one, actually the verse number 3 to 7, it covers the topic related to how Nābhāga's advice upon Nābhāga's advice, the father is Nābhāga, son is Nābhāga. So Nābhāga goes to take this wealth in sacrifice. Nābhāga goes to take wealth. So it is Dakshayagya again, take wealth in a sacrifice. But Shiva, Lord Shiva claims it. Right? So this is the understanding from here. So this is the verse number 3 to 7 we have seen. Now the third part, the 8 to 12. So 8 to 12, what we have seen, that also we are going to write it here. 8 to 12 is all about Shiva, who mercifully who gives wealth to Nābhāga. Nābhāga, and there was along with the spiritual knowledge that we have seen. So this is all about today's session. So we'll continue it, and tomorrow we are going to start with the next segment, that is the verse number 13 to verse number 28. Thanks for joining in. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.